Hey horror fans, welcome back to Room 237 as we finally come to the final film in my Vincent Price collection and the entire marathon with the anthology film based on stories by Nathaniel Hawthorne, Twice Told Tales, which it gets its story from the volume of short story collections by Hawthorne, of which because this is comprised of three stories based on Hawthorne. Only one of them, the first one, was actually published in the book Twice Told Tales. The other one was in something else. And then the third story is actually based on a novel, The House of the Seven Gables, which was previously a film from 1940 that Vincent Price was also in. And I would have to say, even though it's still a horror film, it's not quite as horror as certainly the Poe films. Maybe like the last couple scenes of each story has real horror elements. It's 2 hours long, came out in 1963. This was one of a number of films that Price did in 63. Haunted Palace, The Raven, which I've also reviewed. Diary of a Madman, which I've been meaning to see. I don't know why I don't have that. And Comedy of Terrors, which I thought that was in 64. It co-stars in the first story, according to the back of this, Sebastian Cabot, who plays Carl in the first story, which is my favorite of the three. He went on to be the narrator in many productions of Winnie the Pooh. And it was filmed under the title Corpse Bakers. And of course, being based on Hawthorne, all these stories take place in the 1800s. They're all narrated by Price, the opening and the closing of each story, and they all star Price. Sort of as the villain of each story. The first one, which is called Dr. Heidegger's Experiment. We see two old friends, Alex and Carl, which is actually, these two characters and even that corpse bride is in that story. Two old friends, they're sitting together one night and they go down to the crypt of Carl's wife and because it's Carl Heidegger's 79th birthday. They go down to her crypt and they realize that her body, which she died 38 years prior, her body's still perfectly preserved. And there's some sort of liquid dripping from the, sort of a cavernous area. Carl Heidegger believes that the water must be what's preserving her body. So he drinks some, and, his whole body's taken back 38 years. He gains his youth back. And then Price drinks some, same happens to him. So then he pours some down his wife's throat. She wakes up. And she's alive. And she's taken back to the night of her death, which was the night before their wedding. I really like this story because it really does feels like a Twilight Zone type story. I mean, I would be surprised if Rod Serling was inspired by at least some elements of Hawthorne. because as the story unfolds, there's more twists and turns throughout it. Like, you find out that Price and the fiance actually had an affair together. They were actually in love. Price didn't want to get married. She was only marrying Carl Heidegger, again played by Sebastian Cabot. Pretty much out of spite. But, he spent the last 38 years. I apologize for that. If anyone caught that. That's disgusting. Yeah, it's not Corona, but I don't feel well. And someone tried telling me in the last video it was Corona. No, it's not. But, he's been living in mourning for the last 38 years over the woman he never even got to marry. And she never even loved him in the first place. And then just as it goes on, you find out, Price admits that he actually poisoned her because he couldn't see her marry someone else. All the while, Dr. Heidegger is listening and he heard the whole thing. Then, they get into a fight. Price stabs his lifelong friend, in the hustle. And then that's when he, as he dies, good effects. I would say the aging effects were some of the best, especially at that time. So he becomes old again, and that's when Price realizes the water doesn't last. And he looks over and sees this corpse bride. So he becomes old again, and then when he goes back to the crypt, it stopped dripping the water. So he's stuck like that. And, he's left saying, you took them from me and left me with nothing. So it was kind of like a night that started off celebratory, and then it ended kind of depressingly. I would say that's the best story of the three. It's my favorite anyway. Definitely Twilight Zone-esque. Then the second one is Rappaccini's daughter. In each story we see, sort of a cartoony looking, it's not animated, but, like, obviously fake skeleton arms opening a book. And Rappaccini's daughter is about Price, again, because he's in all three, plays this guy, Rappaccini, who's sort of the oddball of this Italian village. Like, his house is one that people talk about being like, oh, it's the Rappaccinis, I've never seen anyone go in there. And I'll get the name of the actors. The woman, his daughter looked very familiar. And it takes place in Padua, Italy. Joyce Taylor plays his daughter. And Brett Halsey plays Giovanni, the guy that sees her. She's out in the backyard. He just moves in. He sees her. He's in love with her. But we find out that there are these plants out back, these purple plants that if you touch them, there is this highly acidic venom that comes out of them. And just touching them will pretty much kill you. And we find out that Price's daughter has that in her blood. Like, no one can touch her. She's highly venomous to the touch. But she wasn't born that way. he actually, through this experiment, pretty much kind of got her body used to it because, he wanted to keep her away from, bad men or unwanted suitors. But when he recognizes the love and attraction that this Giovanni guy has for her and that she has for him and how she feels uh, like a prisoner, he does this experiment where he pretty much switches Giovanni's blood out for the same poison or the same plant venom. But and then, he goes to hit the professor he knows. He gives him an antidote. But of course, the antidote doesn't work. It's like a Romeo and Juliet. He drinks it, dies. She drinks it, dies. All in front of Price. So he just grabs the plant and kills himself. Not super interesting. I mean, I didn't like it quite as much as the first story. Has some nice visuals. I mean, a lot of things turn purple. Like, the one guinea pig they dyed purple probably died because just of how animals were treated back then. Well, not saying they were treated like the rats on the 79 remake of Nosferatu, but yeah, this venom apparently kills anything upon touch. And then the last story I thought was kind of boring. It's The House of the Seven Gables, which was previously a novel by Hawthorne. Which Price plays this guy who returns to his family's mansion after 17 years. And he brings his wife Alice, his sister Hannah. Well, his sister Hannah had been living in the house in their absence. And they find out about this curse put upon the men of the family. Which I was kind of confused. Oh, because the house was lost from one family to Price's family, or his family line, anyway. Again, sorry I sound like shit. So there's like a curse put on like the men of the family. That one descendant of the family that lost the house comes over, makes an offer. And then, Alice becomes haunted by some ghostly stuff in the curse. And it kind of felt like it needed a whole movie. Which maybe the one from 1940 with Vincent Price works, but Price kills his sister to keep his inheritance. He locks his wife in the basement. He's killed by a skeletal hand in the vault because that's the whole thing. The vault has the deeds to the house, which is what this other descendant, who's played by Richard Denning, and I thought it was kind of boring. It's not one of my favorite anthology stories, which, yeah, I'm wearing my Creepshow shirt. I did plan that. But, Vincent Price was great in all three stories. He always is. I really liked the first one, Dr. Heidegger's experiment. I thought that was a really kind of depressing, but also Twilight Zone type of story. I know Hawthorne has many, many, many other stories they probably could have done. The the second one was okay. But the third one I just thought was really boring. And yeah, probably not the best movie to end a Vincent Price marathon with, but it was the one I saved for last. Mainly because the 2 hour running time and, just there were other ones I wanted to watch first. Um, I wouldn't say I don't recommend it because Vincent Price is always great to see. I always love anthology stories. It's not near as much as a horror film as other, uh, you know, Vincent Price films of the '60s or especially the Poe films. But you know, uh, I enjoyed it for what it was. But yeah, Twice Told Tales, Vincent Price, 1963. And that finally concludes my 20 film Vincent Price marathon. I know I'm dripping, I sound like shit. Not not in great shape today. I apologize for that, but it's not Corona, I promise you. But anyway, thank you for watching, and thank you for sticking with me through this whole Vincent Price marathon. I do have a bunch of random films to get to, starting my Alfred Hitchcock marathon. So, and I am one sub away from 300 subs, so there will be a Q&A coming very soon. I'll make a video for when that is. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching, sticking with me through this marathon, and see you in the next video.